Hi, this is Miss Litton, and this is a wonderful, exciting lunchtime review with my AP biologist. Say hi.
Hi.
Okay, so this one we are on Enduring Understanding 2C. Organisms use feedback mechanisms to regulate growth and maintain homeostasis. Before I show you one thing, think in your mind, if that was an essay question, what example could you come up with on how organisms use feedback mechanisms to regulate growth and maintain homeostasis? Consider it for a moment, and when you're ready, I want you to share it with your bio buddy. Make a claim and support it with evidence. Go. Was everybody able to come up with an example? Yes. Okay. Let's start with talking about what even homeostasis is, and that's maintaining a constant internal environment, even though both your external and internal environment might what? Fluctuate. Okay. So it's keeping that balance. For us in our systems, what are the two big systems? Who's the king and queen of helping us maintain homeostasis?
Nervous system and endocrine.
Nervous system and endocrine. Good. So there is negative feedback and positive feedback. So if you think about what negative feedback is, that's keeping it at a set point, right? And so sometimes you might be a little above, and sometimes you might be a little bit below. And this would be like setting cruise control on your car at 65 miles an hour. Sometimes you go up a hill, so a little more gas is needed. Sometimes you go down a hill and there are some brakes. Here is another example, okay? Actually, not a specific example, just the process. Can I have whoever's oldest between you and the person you're sitting next to, find out who's oldest, run through this little simulation right here. Do it yourself so you own it. So it's not me doing it, but you doing it. Go.
So there's a control system. If you pick up too much,
Now, youngest person or other person, you might be rotating if you're in a big group of 5 or something like that. Why don't you give an authentic example that you should be comfortable with hormones in there? I've named them for you. Go ahead and explain this process. Go ahead. This would be a great one to use.
So it's from the posterior so it's hypothalamus, TRH, to the posterior pituitary, and then it stimulates hormone that goes to the thyroid. Thyroid gland releases thyroid hormone, and once there's enough thyroid hormone, it goes back to the hypothalamus, and it stops like the secretion of thyroid.
Okay, now I just want to take a moment to review the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. Which one is directly connected to the hypothalamus, the posterior or anterior pituitary?
anterior.
Which one? Posterior is directly connected. The neurosecretory cells extend down into the posterior pituitary, and it makes the posterior pituitary's the hormones of the posterior pituitary, and it stores them until their release is triggered. Do you remember the hormones that come out of the posterior pituitary? Oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. Okay? So oxytocin we remember as our what hormone? Out, right? What things go out? Baby goes out because the uterus contracts and milk goes out, right? And then ADH stands for?
Antidiuretic hormone.
Is that involved in homeostasis?
Yeah.
Yes, because it regulates how much water is in our urine. How does it regulate how much water is in our urine? By controlling how much water is reabsorbed out of your collecting ducts. Yeah, collecting ducts of your nephrons. Good. All right. In this case, we're looking at the anterior pituitary, which is not directly connected. So the way it's controlled is by using 2 sets of what? Capillaries. The first set goes as far as the what? Stalk. And the second set is down in the anterior pituitary. And in this case, you have thyroid releasing hormones, and I don't get releasing and stimulating hormones mixed up that often because I know alphabetically R comes before S. So you have thyroid releasing hormones, which are put into the blood at the first set by neurosecretory cells, which are kind of like a neuron, kind of hormonal, same, or like endocrine tissue. Put in the first set of capillaries in the stalk. It travels to the second set of capillaries in the anterior pituitary. The thyroid releasing hormones come out. What would force them to come out at the capillaries?
Oh, it's like blood pressure.
Yeah, what's that called?
Contracting.
Hydrostatic pressure, which will be greater than the I love Brussels sprouts. Oh, that's broccoli. Never mind. Sorry. Look, there goes a chicken. Hydrostatic pressure forcing fluids out will be greater than the osmotic pressure drawing in at what end of the capillary? Arterial end of the capillary. By the time you get to the venular end of the capillary, what pressure is greater?
Osmotic.
See, we're reviewing. All right. So it'll force out that thyroid releasing hormone, which then will cause the anterior pituitary to put what into the capillaries? Thyroid stimulating hormone, which will be carried by the blood back to your heart. Then the blood will go into your lungs. What circuit is that when it goes heart, lungs? Pulmonary circuit, right? Back to your heart, and then back out in your systemic circuit, your body, right? And there, the thyroid gland will have what? Receptors for the thyroid stimulating hormone. Now, thyroid stimulating hormone, will that be a protein hormone or a steroid hormone, do you think? So what's easier is to think about which hormones are steroid hormones and then assume everybody else is not, right? So which ones are the steroid hormones? From the testes and the ovaries, right? So that would be testosterone and estrogen and progesterone, right? And then any of the hormones coming from the adrenal cortex. Glucocorticoids, mineralocorticoids, cortical sex hormones. A mineralocorticoid example would be aldosterone. Okay, good. Okay, lovely. So it's not a mineralocorticoid, it's not a glucocorticoid or a cortical steroid hormone, so it's not from the testes or from the ovaries. So thyroid, it must be what? Or thyroid stimulating hormone must be a what? Protein hormone. So it binds to a receptor, which could trigger a signal transduction pathway, excellent, and trigger a second messenger, which would then cause the release of what? Thyroid hormone, which is now in our capillaries and traveling throughout our body, doing its job. When that thyroid hormone level gets high enough, it will exert what kind of feedback? Negative feedback on both the hypothalamus and the pituitary. Okay, give yourself a grade on that to your bio buddy. How did you do? Did you get all that? All right. So here is another example. One of you explained this. I need the other bio buddy, which would be person number 3, or back to the oldest bio buddy. You do this one. Go ahead. And temperature. Go. Start talking. All right. So temperature control is another one. Okay, and then let's talk about positive feedback. If I said, would you like a cookie, you would tell me? Maybe yes, I don't know. And so having one cookie makes you want to have more cookies, at least for me. Okay, and a good example of that is birth. Okay, and the example we looked at for positive feedback, though we're also going to look at the menstrual cycle as well. Okay, whoever's turn it is, back to youngest or person, whoever. Go. Explain this one. Make them verbalize it. They're going to have to do it on the test. Make them verbalize it. So does positive feedback go on forever? No, it usually ends in some event. Okay, maybe ovulation, or it ends in an event the baby's born. Okay, and then the process can go over again, start over again. So we have this head against the cervix. When that nerve stimulus that's received, then that makes you secrete even more what? Oxytocin, which makes the uterus contract more, which is the head against the cervix even more, and it keeps going and going and going until you have birth. Here's another example of positive feedback. Whoever's turn it is, take the slide. Go. So that makes me think about plant hormones. Ethylene, which is just one of them, which causes fruit ripening. What other plant hormones are there? What's the key, like? Auxin. What are some attributes of auxin? Stem elongation. Apical dominance, going along with that. What else? Phototropism. Gravitropism. Good. Let's name another hormone. You've got auxin, you've got ethylene. Give me another one. Gibberellins. Getting jibby with it. The party hormone. What happens? Break out of seed dormancy, bud dormancy. See, it's lame, but you remembered. What else? Name another one.
Abscisic acid.
Abscisic acid. All the other ones are go, go, go. Abscisic acid is stop. It can help in two ways. It can prepare for wintering and also close stomata. I need one more. Give you a hint. Cytokinins. Okay, which promotes more cells through cell what? Division. Okay. So here's another positive feedback loop, just a different one than we talked about in class. Whoever's turn it is, go for it. Start in the middle. This is going to happen until all the glaciers melt. Okay, there we go. Then death and destruction. All right. I don't remember what these questions are. Do you want to do them? You want me? Okay. Here, I need to remove some students from last class. Be whatever you want to be. That's okay. How far do I know? I want to finish this 2C, so we need to do that. We have Roz Jot, and we have Roz Jot.
It's a sniffing sigh.
5 of you are joining, that's it?
What?
I don't even know what the one question is. Is it hard? Tell me what the question is.
It says which of these water systems contribute to homeostasis?
Those are the main two. Those are the
Oh, which of these or why do these?
Which of these?
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm done. Good. All of these will contribute. All of these contribute. 2 are the master ones, right? Have the highest, but all of them will contribute. Okay, let's keep going. Take a look at this. This looks familiar. Okay. Totally. Okay. We have both positive and negative in when you look at the menstrual cycle. So I'll walk you through it. Okay. So it all starts in the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus secretes gonadotropic releasing hormone. Gonadotropic, what do you hear in that? Gonadotropic releasing hormone, which is going to affect what? Who does the hypothalamus talk to? The pituitary, yeah. Then the pituitary starts to secrete FSH, which is what? Follicle stimulating hormone. FSH talks to the ovaries, and inside the ovaries, those follicles, as they're in there, that's the little jacket around the egg, right? As the follicle is stimulated, it starts to release what? The two hormones from the ovaries conveniently are released in alphabetical order. So, what will come out next? Estrogen. Estrogen does two things. Estrogen provides positive feedback back to the hypothalamus and the pituitary, and it also causes your uterine lining to build. When that level gets to a high enough amount, then you will have much gonadotropic releasing hormone come out of your hypothalamus, which then makes your pituitary secrete, what's the next one? We had FSH and now LH, which stands for luteinizing, but you could think leaving, because luteinizing hormone causes the egg to bust out of the follicle, which is called what? Ovulation. Come on, ladies. Ovulation. And then that empty follicle will become what's called a corpus luteum, which is a yellow goopy mass. And this yellow goopy mass will secrete the second ovarian hormone, which is what? Progesterone. Progesterone causes the uterine lining to maintain and also gives what kind of feedback? Negative feedback, saying don't start another cycle because we might have a baby. If you have a baby, if you have a fertilized egg, that will trigger, the fertilized egg will secrete human chorionic HCG. Is it growth? HCG growth, something hormone? I think that's it. And then that will trigger the maintenance of the corpus luteum. But if not, no baby, then the corpus luteum will atrophy, no more progesterone, which will then say no more uterine lining, and you get your period. So this is a good cycle in the sense that it involves both positive and negative feedback. And you can see that in multiple diagrams that you could Google at any point. Okay, another way we have homeostasis is by having antagonistic hormones. So whoever's turn it is, let's talk about blood sugar levels and the hormones that control it. Go ahead. Giving you an easy one. Go. So, if the blood sugar level's too high, what hormone are you going to have?
Insulin.
Insulin, which will lower it. If it's too low, what hormone will you have? Glucagon, which will elevate the blood glucose level. Can you give me another set of antagonistic hormones? Calcitonin and parathyroid. Who secretes calcitonin? Thyroid gland. And then the parathyroid gland secretes parathyroid hormone, which is antagonistic to it. All right, and that's just a review of blood sugar level. Just take a moment, look at it. Okay, yay. All right, and here's yet another picture. Why I felt that we needed to have three, I have no idea. Look it over. Nothing should be too hard there. Okay, so organisms respond to changes in their environment, and you can look at some different things here. Maybe it will trigger mating and nesting. It could be changing the coloration of their bodies. It could be the way they face the sun, get into the sun or get out of the sun. It could affect which way a plant grows. These are all examples, and you have some sort of receptor which triggers a signal transduction pathway. So there are many different ways that organisms can respond to their environment. We looked at an example here where if you don't have enough water in your environment, an adaptation would be is to allow the water to leave your body and just condense and wait till the conditions are better and then rehydrate. There's some worms that can do that. behavioral responses to an environment would be like a bear, and what do bears do? Hibernate, yeah. So why do they hibernate? Go ahead, whoever's turn it is, talk about hibernation. It's right here. Do you remember when we looked at the foraging theory, and that there are times, right, that you want to be most advantageous to eat and consume food? If there's not a lot of food out right now, you don't want to waste energy running around and looking for food, so instead you would just hibernate. Okay. Here, they're like, we're out of here. Whoever's term here is another behavioral response to the environment. What are they doing? They're in a herd, right? Okay, so talk about why would they migrate. Whoever's turn it is, go ahead and take this one. Just read it, explain it. Okay, so why do you migrate? Why do you move? Because there are better resources. Why was that behavior selected for? Those that did the migration journey, even though there are costs in the journey, whoever did the migration journey are the ones that were more likely to survive and reproduce. Good. Okay, thermoregulation, we already talked about that in an earlier example. That's responding to your environment. Let's look at some of the different systems, though, that are involved in thermoregulation. If you look over here on, oh my gosh, on the periphery, okay, like your skin temperature, bye, sweetheart. You can see your hypothalamus is involved, right? And then skin, like what will happen when we're really hot? We might sweat, right? Our skin might become flush because our circulatory, you're having those capillaries closer to the surface, right? Bring the blood to the surface in order to cool it. Countercurrent. Whoever's turn it is, you're up. Okay, go ahead. Contrasting countercurrent with concurrent.
Oh, you got this. Finish eating your cookies.
Okay, so when did, if it was concurrent, if they were going the same, when did the change stop? When did the change stop? Here, right? It happens, then you're done. There's no more change because we're running and we're gonna go until we have even Steven amount of heat energy. But if we're countercurrent, you can keep causing, and you look at the change that you can have, another 3 degrees in change, right? Because you're countercurrent, you're always going, you're the less hot, right? One, as it's going to slowly lose heat, but it's coming in contact with cooler and cooler blood that'll allow for that transfer. Another way to deal with environmental stress is to mutate. What could a mutation bring? It could give you a new gene, which could give you a new adaptation, right? Do you remember when we talked about genes moving around? What do we call those jumping genes? Yeah, so transposomes. So when they jump around, you might get a new combination of exons, which could help you to be better adapted. So it is also, this could be another thing. It says bacteria, yeast, and other organisms that are under stress undergo frequent mutations, which might be an evolutionary mechanism to help them deal with their environment. I can't deal with this environment, so I will just mutate. Anything will be better than what I'm doing now because what I'm doing now is dying. Okay, so it's worth it to mutate. And that is the end of that enduring understanding. Good job. Yay! We're going to pick up at 2D. I believe I have a review tomorrow for you. Have some toast.